before I sing, I just want to explain why we sing a song. This is a very special day for all of us, and we want to just open the ceremony with a prayer song, just like any other culture or heritage would do. So this is our way of having an open prayer for a ceremony.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful.
First of all, I'd just like to start off by saying thank you to this building for giving us a place to be and gather today. I want to thank you to the homeowners, we usually say. Thank you, Matt, for opening your doors for us to gather. I want to turn to my brother Powwow Joe and say thank you for the honor song and the explanation of why we start with opening that path, clearing that path, putting the good vibes forward, putting that good heart forward. You know, so we're all come together on one mind, one heart, and one prayer for what we're going to do, what's going to take place today. I'll read what. So it was explained to me that when Hero WODs come around, there's a little backstory, and this is what I'll read for right now. And then after I share a few words with you guys. Residential schools were initially run by Catholic and Protestant churches, but in the 1880s, the federal government fully embraced and funded the residential school system as part of the Indian Act. From 1863 to 1996, over 150,000 children were forcibly removed from their families and places in these boarding schools. That is 7 generations of indigenous people over the course of 150 years. Many children never returned home, and those who did suffered from unimaginable traumas. The explicit intent was to separate these children from their families and cultures in an effort to, quote, kill the Indian in the child. In 1920, the Indian Act made attendance at Indian residential schools compulsory for treaty status children between the age of 7 and 15. The schools were often underfunded and overcrowded. The quality of education was substandard. Children were severely mistreated, degraded, and abused. 90 to 100% have suffered severe physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. There was a 40 to 60% mortality rate in residential schools. What happened? The remains of 215 indigenous children found. A mass grave was found at a residential school in British Columbia that contained the remains of 215 indigenous children. Kamloops First Nation is working with museum specialists and the coroner's office to establish the causes and timing of deaths, which is currently unknown. The death of these children and the mass grave were never documented by the school's administrators. Some of the children found are as young as 3 years old. Worth noting, the children in residential schools were under the care of school staff, the churches, and the federal government, who are all responsible for killing and abusing the children. The landmark Truth and Reconciliation Report released in 2015 called Residential Schools, a systematic government-sponsored attempt to destroy Aboriginal cultures and languages and to assimilate Aboriginal peoples so that they no longer existed as a distinct peoples. That was my first time reading that. Talking with my family here, each and every one of us feel shaken. And it's not our nerves, it's our heart that's quivering. It's our spirit that's touched. The ones you see standing here before you, we are all survivors. We all have grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents that were forcibly taken from their homes, from our lands, and put into residential schools. And it's something that is known throughout our families, something that we don't openly share or talk about. But given the time and given the situation we're in, where things get, what's done in darkness will always be brought to light. So in a way, it's our ancestors telling us now is the time to talk. Sometimes you just have to wait until people are ready to listen. Or it'll just fall on deaf ears, or it won't have the impact that it can have. You know, you heard what I said, deliberately trying to take our culture away. Thankfully, those of us you see standing here had ancestors, had elders that might have held on to just a thin strand of who we are as a people. One little thin strand of our culture. But as we come together and our strands start intertwining again, we become as strong as the blanket you see me wearing. Covered in who we are as a people, kept warm by our teachings. One day we'll have a full blanket again. It might not be the same, but it'll be ours. And all we can do is hold on to who we are as a people. They tried to break us, but it didn't work. Sure, we're battered. Sure, we're bruised. But you'll never hear us standing up here claiming to be a victim. We'll bend but not break. No, I know some of you might be feeling a little bit of guilt, a little bit of pity, but we don't look for pity or your guilt. The only reason you'd have to feel guilty is if you didn't turn around and teach your children the truth. You know, they say history is written by the victor. Well, history was written wrong for us. But the battle's not over. As you can see, our history will be told. It will be shared. You know, so today we ask you to do this from a place of love in your heart and strength, not a place of pity and sorrow. Don't look at us with hurt. Be proud of who you guys are. Opening your doors, opening your arms, opening your hearts to let us have a chance to have this floor and share it with you. Not all bad came. Not all bad. We're stronger because of what we went through. You know, the physical pains, emotional pains that our people had to suffer. There's 3 pillars: physical, mental, spiritual. They beat us up on those 2 and tried taking away the spiritual, but our spirits are stronger. And I have to believe that when those 2, the physical and mental, were getting so abused, that our spirits is what kept us strong. Why we're here today. You know, when we talk in our ceremonies, it's always to appease the spirit. We always give thanks. We always say thank you. We try to count our blessings rather than dwell on the hurt we carry. You know, there's a lot of ignorance in the world. And ignorance is just not knowing. But it's scary when there are people out there who don't want to know. There's a word for that too, and I won't use it here today. So I appreciate again all of you guys that are here. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
I'd like to thank you all for being here to work out and honoring our ancestors. Just like the WOD, hero WOD, honoring them. My grandmother was in boarding school, she was a survivor. But she told me stories about what had happened to her in boarding school. But I imagine she saw a lot of other things when she was a child. She was taken from her home. But thank you all for being kind to us. Thank you for this gym. Thank you for the speaker and the drummer. And the family that we have here. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Maggie, for allowing us to help to Lummi Nooksack Tribe. I'm from the Lummi Tribe. I'm married into the Nooksack Tribe. So this is my family too. But thank you for allowing us to, work out and honoring our family. Thank you very much.
All right.